And thank you.
All right, there you go. Okay, well, let's get started. And I'm going to turn my camera off to preserve some bandwidth, and you might want to do the same. So let's go ahead and get started. And where's my camera? There we go. So as she mentioned, my name is Debbie Gurtler. I work for the Family History Library in Salt Lake for Family Search, and I manage the Latin America and Southern Europe and the German Slavic teams and oversee the training. And I love all things Hispanic research. And no, I don't have any Hispanic ancestry, but I'm single, so there's still a possibility. So, all right. So tonight's presentation is Leaving No Stone Unturned, Getting the Most Out of FamilySearch.org. And Family Search adds millions of new records every week. Are you finding everything you should? This presentation will highlight a variety of ways that you can search the vast collections of Family Search, and will also demonstrate some innovations to help everyone to be more successful in their family history research. So let's take a look at our little roadmap here of what we're going to go over. We're going to talk about historical records and the Family Search catalog. We're going to talk about a new search feature that you may not have used yet, which is called images. We're going to talk about our digital books, our genealogies, and our research wiki. So we're going to go over each of these, and I'm going to give you some demonstrations on these, and I'm going to go back and forth between the PowerPoint and live demonstration. So let's get started with historical records. I'm going to highlight a few search techniques that I hope that will help you to have some greater success. So because new index records are added every week, always start by searching by name. You can also search by relationship. So you can add a person and their spouse, or you can add a person, or you can do a parent search and search for just by the names of the parents. And you can also add some other relationships as well. One technique that I use a lot that maybe some of you might not be aware of is limiting the results by locality. And of course, my favorite mantra is less is more. You can go in and fill in all the blanks in the search engine if you want to, all of the fields, but that's going to narrow your focus so much that you might miss some results. And so I recommend that you back out some of that information and put in the bare minimum and see what you come up with. I would rather go through the results myself than have the computer pick things, and maybe some of the results don't show something that might be spelled a little different, or the date's off a little bit. I want to be able to make those distinctions. And of course, it's always important to apply filters when needed. So keep that in mind as well as you're going through this. All right, so let's talk a little bit about searching with a relationship. As I mentioned, you can do a spouse search. So you can search for the person with the name of his or her spouse. And if they have multiple spouses, you can add multiple spouses in the search engine, which is a relatively new feature that they've just added. If you want to, you can do a parent search. So you can just search for the entire family using just the names of the parents. And you can also do a search for the family using only the paternal and maternal surnames. And that's a good technique for Hispanic researchers, because we know in Hispanic countries, the women don't change their name, they keep their name. So you can search for them by their paternal and maternal surnames. And of course, if they're really common surnames, maybe not so much, but if they're unusual, it's another good search technique that you're going to want to try. All right, now before we begin doing some searching, here are a few more important tips. As I mentioned before, always search by name first, because new things are being added every week. When you're searching, try every name in the family. You know, if you're not finding your guy, try the name of a brother or the name of a sister. When you find an indexed record or some indexed information, always, always, always look at that image, because there's always parts of the image that are not indexed, and you're going to miss some important clues if you don't. Be sure to attach the sources to your family tree, whether it's on Family Search or Ancestry, or if you like Roots Magic or Family Tree Maker. Just attach your sources so you can remember where you found them, and also if it's an online tree, so you can show that your tree is true information and not mythology, because genealogy without sources is mythology. And then I also recommend that you always search using a variety of methods. If you haven't tried searching 4, 5, 6 different ways, I recommend that I'd say you haven't tried hard enough, because there's so many different ways that you can search when you're doing your searches. All right, now, as I mentioned, always looking for the image to get when you get an index record. Start by reviewing each of your results. Is there an image attached? If so, click on that image and look at it. If it's not, you might need to browse the images in order to find it. If you have to browse the images, is there a film number or an item number or a page number in that index information that'll help you to find it a little easier? And also, make note of the date and the location of the record, because that will make it easier for you to find as well. So, all right, we are ready to jump in and do some searches. So I'm going to go here on familysearch.org, and hopefully you can see my family search screen still. If not, let me know, but we're going to go on familysearch.org, and you'll notice that I am logged in. I'm going to click here on search, and then I'm going to go to records, and that's going to bring up the search engine. Before I move on, if you're having trouble accessing records in your local family history center, make sure that the browser extension has been downloaded on your computer, because that will allow you access when you're on the Wi-Fi system of the Family History Center. So even for those of you that maybe your Family History Center is closed, but you can sit in a parking lot and get on the Wi-Fi, download this extension and you can have greater access to records. So if you click on download here, it will allow you to do that.
Oh,
All right. Yeah, big tip.
big
Now,
tip.
now let's go to the search engine here. So I'm going to click on more options so you can see what all is available. So we've got up here, we've got alternate name, and you can add the sex there if you want, first names, last names, life events. We'll open up some places where you can put in a place and you can put in a year range. I don't typically use this unless I'm looking for a very specific event. And then this is where you can add other family members. So a spouse, a father, a mother, other person. And then there's also options to filter by record type, batch number, film number, that sort of thing. I seldom use that one as well. And then this is where you can limit by the locality. And then if you want to do an exact search, you can move this button over. I don't recommend that either. So let's start by looking for Jose Manuel Castillo. And we know that he married Felicitas Griego. And now, if in this case, I want to kind of tease out a marriage date, but I'm not going to put a place. I'm just going to put a date range on the marriage. So I know they married sometime between 1860 and 1870. And then down here, I'm going to put United States because I'm looking in New Mexico. And you'll notice as I start to type that in, I get options. So I don't have to type the whole thing. And then let's put in New Mexico. There we go. And then I can click on search. And this is going to bring up my results page. I'm going to make this, I'm going to dismiss that and make this just a tad smaller so you can see a little bit more. Okay, so here are my results. And I have the option here to filter my results. So if I want to filter by a specific collection, if I click on collection and open this up where it says show all 9, I can choose just to filter by New Mexico marriages if I want to. And if I go back, well, I'll show you how to do that. So if I click on New Mexico marriages and then click apply collection filter, now it's only going to show me results that come from that collection of New Mexico marriages. If I want to get rid of that filter, all I have to do is exit out up here and it goes away, and then it reorders my results. Now I can click on the name here, Jose Manuel Castillo, and then a little record preview is going to appear right over here. If I click on this tree icon or the pedigree icon, it'll show me where this record is attached to a person in the Family Search family tree. Now, I can also click on this little piece of paper, which will open up the full indexed results. I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then it will pull up this page. This is what I call the indexed information. So this is Jose Manuel Castillo, and he's in the New Mexico marriages. This date range is the date range of the collection and not the date range of the marriage. Over here, I have the ability to check and see if the image is available. Before we do that, I want to show you this information on the right-hand side. So this shows me that this record has been attached to Jose Manuel Castillo in the Family Search family tree. And I can click on that. And so I'm just going to right click on it so you can see it and go to that page in the Family Search family tree. And I can see the information that's here and look it over and see if I think this is my guy or not and have that information. I also have here a list of similar records. So what this is Family Search looks for other similar records based on the information that's in this record and on the information that I put in my search engine. So I would want to look through all of these as well. This is kind of our equivalent of the Ancestry Shaky Leaf. So these are your suggested records. Now, as I look through the records here, I've got Jose Manuel and his father, Jose Antonio and Maria de los Reyes Lucero, and I've got the spouse, Maria Felicita, and then her parents. I've got the date of the marriage and the place and the name of the church. But you remember that I told you that I wanted to, you should always look at the image. So I'm going to go over here to the left-hand side and open up document information. And this is going to tell me the digital folder and the film number, but it doesn't give me much more information. So I can click here and see if the image is available. So it says this information came for record from this group of images, but this might not take me directly to the image. I will need to look through several images. So I'm going to click here on Browse the Film, and that will open up in a new tab. And we'll talk a little bit about the image viewer. So all of those lovely microfilms that we used to look at and crank the little machine and all that in the Family History Center have been digitized. And this is what it looks like when they're digitized. This is the thumbnails. And this is our image viewer that comes through the catalog. There are some options here. So if I want to advance one image at a time, I can use these arrows up in the upper left-hand corner here. If I want to enlarge this or zoom out, I can do that. If I want to go full screen, I can also do that. And then over here on this side, I have an option. Let's say I find a record and I want to add it. I'm not sure it's my guy, but I want to throw it in my source box so I can find it easy again later. I can do that. If I want to attach an image to Family Tree, I can do that. If I want to print, don't use this option. My recommendation is that you download the image and print it from a photo program instead. The print option here is no bueno. It's not good. And then we also have tools here that you can use to rotate, to adjust the image, to invert the colors. Now, I still have my option open here that tells me the date and more information about the marriage. So I'm going to look for the 1st of November, 1869. Generally speaking, these records are in chronological order. Now, if I click here, this is my title slate. It'll tell me a little bit more about what's in this particular section. So this is marriages that start in 1858. So now I just have to go in and go through the marriages and find the marriage by date. So I'm going to jump ahead to image 75 because, as you imagined, I've had this planned already. So as we look through here, we can see this is April of 1869. So, and then we've got July. Let's go back here. So now, and again, remember it's 1st of November. So as I look through these, it's not quite there. So there's August. Let's advance another image and see. And this is how you do it. I just use this to advance one at a time. And sure enough, here's my record. And so again, it's in Spanish because it's in New Mexico, but I have the date, November 1st, 1869. And information about Jose Manuel. He's single, and it gives me he's the legitimate son of his and gives the names of his parents, it tells me that he is from Valencia. So that is where I would hope to find his birth record. And then we have the exact same information for the bride. And then we have the names of the padrinos. So that's how you would do it if you found an index record, but it wasn't attached to the image. Click on that option to view the image and you can go there with that. Now let's go back to our PowerPoint and let's talk about another thing that you need to know about. Family Search has added a great innovation called computer aided indexing. It's still kind of, it's in process. They're doing a good job there. As you can imagine, having a computer index records, there are some errors. What they're doing right now is all Spanish and Portuguese baptisms. They have to fit a certain criteria. They have to be very formulaic so that the computer can pick out the key information and then it indexes. And as you mentioned, there are some errors in that. But the good thing about it is it provides a multitude of names for people. People are starting to find lots of records that they could never find before. As you find these errors, you have an option to go in and edit these records and make them a little bit better. So I recommend that you do that because it'll help to make the system better. So now we are going to go back to Family Search and I'm going to go back to my home page. We're going to do a search. This time we're going to go down into Mexico. So I'm going to put in the name of a couple and I'm just going to look for dad and mother. This is another search technique that I like to do to search for full families. So we're going to look for Florencio Adame and we're going to add mom. She is Antonia Robles. And then I know that they lived in Mexico. I'm going to turn off that exact search and I'm going to look for, and they lived in the state of Zacatecas. So, and this is all I'm going to put in. I'm not going to put any more information. So I'm just going to put in that and then I'm going to just click on search. And you'll see all of the different records that it has found for this family. So it says 46 results. As I look through these, most of these do indeed apply. And again, remember, this is telling me that there might be a possible match in the tree. This allows me to view the image, and this allows me to view the index record information. So as I look through this, I can see some other records here. Let's click on this one that doesn't have a first name. So we're going to go here and we're going to take a look at, we're going to go to view record. And then again, we're going to pull up that indexed information and you'll see over here, this is a tree match. Here's some similar records. In this case, the actual record is found right here. So I can take a look at it, click on it, and see what it says. Wait for it to load. So when you come across records like this in Family Search that have these lovely blue boxes around them, that's your clue that this record has been computer aided indexed. So the computer they have a special program that outlines them in blue to separate the entries, and you can use that. Now you'll notice that, let me go back to my indexed information here, that all I have is the names of the parents. If we go back to the actual record, you'll notice that there are grandparents here. Now, if I hadn't looked at the image, I wouldn't have known that there are grandparents in this record. So we've got los abuelos paternos, the paternal grandparents, and their names, Juan Pablo Adame and Refugio Gonzalez. And then I've got the maternals, Jose Maria Robles and Carmen Lopez. So this is a good reinforcer to make sure that you always look at the image. I'm going to go back here and I'm going to click on the indexed information because I told you that there was an opportunity here to edit. I've just picked a different record. So as I'm looking at this, for example, if I look at this name of this grandparent and that doesn't look quite right, so I can click on it. First thing you have to do in order to edit it is click on it, and then it will shift, and then you can go to this button that says edit. And then that will allow you to change the name. So I'm going to click here on edit. And what they like for you to do is to highlight the area. So as the record comes up, it'll show you what the computer did for the record. And you can see because it went across 2 lines, it wrote it funny like that. So I can just correct it. And then I will go down here, select my reason. It's just indexed a little incorrectly. And then I can just save it. And then I'll get this little message, and sure enough, in a few minutes, it'll be spelled correctly. So you can do that with any records that you find to correct them. There's a few others here that need to be corrected, but for the sake of time, we're not going to do any more. So let's go back to our presentation and let's move on. Once you've searched by name, you may be wondering what specific records are available for your ancestors in the localities they lived in. So now I'm going to highlight some catalog searches. So there are some different searches that you can do. You can search by place, by surname, by title, by author, by subject, keyword. And then you can also do a call number search. Let's say you're reading an article somewhere and it refers to a FHL call number or an FHL film number. You can search by those, or a DGS number. There's also options to choose the availability and then some other catalogs that you can use as well. When you're using the catalog, and I'll highlight those options when we go live to that part of the presentation. Be sure and check, these are your catalog tips, be sure and check all the jurisdictional levels for a locality. So if you think about record keeping, thinking about here in the United States, we have federal census, we have federal taxes, we have state taxes. Sometimes we have city or county taxes. All of those are different entities in different jurisdictions. We also have, so maybe we have a county level for some records, and then we have a parish church level. So always check the different jurisdictional levels of your locality so you see what else might be available. Try keyword combination searches. That can be a very powerful way to search the catalog. And when you're looking specifically, for example, in Mexico or other Spanish-speaking countries, do your keyword searches in language. For instance, registros militares and then Mexico. So Mexico military records, and I'll show you how to do that. And then if you can't make it to Salt Lake City to access some of our books and our collections that we don't send out, you can use WorldCat or Archive Grid to find materials that might be available locally. And you can also try our lookup service, which allow you to send in a request. Maybe there's a book at the library and you know there's a page about your ancestors in that book. You can fill out a form, send us a request, and if restrictions allow it, we'll make a digital copy and send it back to you via email. It takes about 2 to 4 weeks to get the copy back, sometimes less, sometimes more, depending on how busy we are. Okay, now, let's see. Well, let's save this one and let's go into the catalog first because that'll make it easier to understand. So on family search, I can get to it if I'm on the home page by clicking search and then catalog. And then here are my various search options. So I can do a surname and just put in a surname. I can do titles. I can do an author, subject. As you click on one of these, it will open up a new field where you can enter some information. If you want to check to see if there's anything close by in your local library, or if you want to order something into your library by interlibrary loan, you can try WorldCat and see if you can find the book nearby or in a place that has interlibrary loan and have them send it to your local library. Excuse me, the Archive Grid has options for archival materials from archives around the world, and that's another area that you can search to see what kind of information you can find. Now I'm going to close up my keyword for a minute and I'm going to do a place search. So I'm going to go to one of the places that I lived in New Mexico, Silver City, and put that in. And you can see as I type in a place, it offers me options. So the options here are listed in jurisdictional order from largest to smallest. So we've got country, state, county, and city. Now you don't have to type them in this order. You can begin by typing in the name of the place and then just choose the correct option from the list. So I've got my option chosen. I'm going to click on search. Oh, before I do that, let's talk about availability. If I keep the any button highlighted, that's going to show me anything Family Search has for that locality. If I want to see just what's available and viewable online, I can choose that. If I want to see just what I can see in my Family History Center, I can choose this, and you can actually even choose a library. My personal preference, though, I want to know everything. I want to know what you got, so I'm going to look at anything. So let's click here on search. And here these are records that are specific to Silver City in Grant County, New Mexico. Now, if I want to go the next jurisdiction up and see what's available for the whole county, you'll notice there's a few more things here. So these are some options as well if I want to search for an ancestor who lived in Grant County. Now, if I want to, and also in our catalog, it points out when the county was created and from which county it was created from. So if I'm looking for somebody who lived in the area before 1868, I think I should look in Doña Ana County. Now let's go for, if I want to see all of New Mexico, these are all records that are pertinent for the entire state of New Mexico. So make sure you try all your jurisdictional levels. Now let's go back to Grant County and back to Silver City. Now let's say I want to look for a particular record. So I'm going to go to church records and I'm going to click here. I want to see the Catholic Church records from St. Vincent de Paul. And as I open this up, you can see there's some information about it. It's the church, when it was filmed, and then it tells me the text is in English, Latin, and Spanish. There are some indexes. There's a space in the middle of book 8 of baptisms. I've got some other information here as well. Now, as I look at these icons, there's a magnifying glass that tells me that some or perhaps all of this particular film has been indexed, and I can look in that film by clicking on the magnifying glass. If I want to go through the images page by page, I click on the camera. So let's take a look at how that works. I'm going to go to this one for baptisms, 1874 to 1911. I'm going to click on the magnifying glass, and that's going to bring up a list of records that have been indexed from that particular microfilm. So I've got a list here. Now, if I want to find somebody that I think should be in that collection, I can type in his name. So let's try Francisco Gomez. And then I can just click on search. And it will search. Oh, there wasn't any in this one, but I can search in that entire collection of what's been indexed. Let's take Francisco out and just look at all the Gomez. So here I've got some Gomez's, and then I've got the name of the child, and I've got the names of the parents, and that gives me more information. It doesn't look like the image is attached because there's no camera icon here. So if I want to look at the image, I'm going to have to browse through the films. So that is one way that you can use this to search through records that have already been indexed. Now let's go back to the catalog for a minute. So what if you have a place name and you're not quite sure how to spell it? I recommend that you start with the next highest jurisdiction, SoCal. I always struggle with how they spell those native town names. So I'm going to click here. And then if I go here, places within, I can see a list of all of those places. Oh, there it is, Teolochoco. I wasn't sure how to spell it, and then I can click on it and I can go right there. Or Xalostoc, it gives me an option because our catalog really wants you to spell it correctly. It doesn't offer options if you don't spell it correctly. Now let's go to the keyword search, because I promised I would show you that one. Registros, militares, and then Mexico. Oops, forgot my S. So military records in Mexico. Again, if you're looking in language, do your search in language because the descriptions are often in language. And here I have a list of 8 results that should have some sort of military records from Mexico. I doubt this one does because it says it's from Chile, but the rest of them are probably good. All right, let's go back to our PowerPoint. Now, we saw the icons in the catalog. The magnifying glass icon lets me know that at least one record from that particular collection has been indexed. So I can click on the magnifying glass icon and search in that particular collection. Now, if you don't find your person and you feel pretty confident that they should be in there, then browse the images because they may still be there. Now, the camera icon lets you know the images are digitized and online, and they're easily accessible by everybody. You just have to click on the camera icon to view the images. Now, if you have a camera icon that has the key, those records have some additional restrictions. Those restrictions are placed upon the collection from the archive or the repository where Family Search captured them. They said, oh yeah, you can make copies of these, but we only want people to be able to see them if they're in one of your family history centers. Or in some extreme cases, only people who are members of your church can see them. So if you click on the icon, you should be able to see the restrictions. Generally speaking, if you're logged into Family Search and you're in a family history center, you'll be able to see a lot more than you will from home in some instances. And then you can use that little trick I showed you about getting onto the Wi-Fi in the parking lot of the church building. So the microfilm icon, last year, no, it wasn't last year, a couple of years ago, they finally finished digitizing all the microfilm rolls. But if you see the microfilm roll icon, that means that it's not yet viewable online. Keep in mind when they filmed a lot of this stuff back in the 40s, the 50s, the 30s, nobody'd heard of the internet back then. So there was nothing in the contracts that said anything about allowing them to be put on the internet. And so in some cases, we've had to go back and renegotiate contracts and figure out if we can put them online or not. So usually sometimes that can be overcome by going into a family history center and logging in, and you may have greater visibility of records there. Now let's talk about a new feature that you may not have used yet. It's called Family Search Images. What is it and why use it? It's the first stop in the digital pipeline for newly captured images that are not yet in the catalog. Family Search has cameras out all over the world capturing images of records. And the first place they go is in this digital pipeline is into images. It takes a while for them then to appear in the catalog. You can also find in the images, digital images of virtually every microfilm that's already found in the catalog. And it does have some much better image viewer options than the regular catalog image viewer. You can actually blow things up a lot bigger, and you can also rotate right and left instead of just left. You will have to remember, though, that the viewing restrictions still apply. So keep that in mind. If it's restricted in the catalog, it's going to be restricted in images. If you put in a DGS number and it doesn't show it to you, that means it's been restricted and you don't have the rights to see it. So some tips and techniques that you can use in the images section. It's basically designed to search by locality. You can apply filters to your results, just as you could in your search results. You can filter by date and by record type. As I mentioned, it has the enhanced image viewer tools. And then you can also do a map view search or a radial parish search. Say, let's say you can't find your ancestor in the town he's supposed to be in. You can look around and see what other towns are close by in case he might have wandered off, because that's not uncommon. So let's go into images. So I'm going to go back to Family Search, and then from the home page, click on Search and then Images. And that brings up this search engine where you can search for the images. But before you do, take some time to read through this. This talks about the records and how we acquire them. And then there's this one that asks, well, why isn't there a name field? Why can't I search by person? Again, these are images. They haven't been indexed. So if you want to search by name, you need to go to historical records. There's also some tips here on which places that you should search for. And again, same thing I told you before about jurisdictions. Try all the jurisdictions. And then it talks a little bit about the image groups as well. So that's a little bit of background information here. So now here you can begin to type in the name of a place. So we're going to go to Matachi in Chihuahua. And then I can choose it from the list of the options that come up. And then I can click here on search. And that's going to bring up my results. I'll give it a minute. So you can see I have 61 results here. So I've got the different records that I can look through. Let's say I wanted to see marriages from let's say 1888. So I can go over here on this right-hand side and I can put in a date. So once I type in a date, make sure you choose the right one that matches. You can also do a date range. So I could do 1888 to 1890 if I wanted to. Choose that option, and then I could choose a life event. So let's say I want to look at marriages, and then I click on update, and it will update my options here. And then I can see these that are available that I can look at. And so let's take a look at one. We'll click here. Start with this one, 1889. And it brings up the image viewer that you can use in images. So we'll give it just a second. It's having a good old time. Good time for Debbie to take a drink of water. There we go. So here are your images, and you can see it looks a lot like the image viewer. If you want to get rid of this thing on the side, you can just click on the X. Now, as I click on an image, let's just click on this one, number 4. You still have the same options to zoom in and zoom out. Down here at the bottom, you have your thumbnails in the form of a film strip. If you want to go back to the thumbnails in the grid, just click here on the grid. Let's go back to the record here. There are the tools here for the image viewer are found right here. So I have options, and if you'll watch the image as I go brighter and darker, you can adjust it. And then the same thing, my typical thing to do is make it go a little bit darker and then raise up the contrast, because it kind of helps the letters pop off the page. You also have options here to rotate the image to the right and then rotate back to the left if you'd like to. You can download the image here as well if there are no copyright restrictions. And then if you want to see information about the collection, click on this little thing and it'll give you a little summary and a little citation that you can use if you need it to put in your record. So that, and then if you'll watch on the zoom here, it just really lets you zoom in way more than the image viewer that you get to from the catalog. So that is that. Now let's say, go back to my results here, and let's say that I want to, they weren't in Matachi and I want to see, perhaps they were somewhere nearby. I can click here on the map and it'll show me some of the surrounding areas. I can perhaps write those down or whatever to remember which places are nearby and search for those records. Now, looks like Tamosachi is pretty close, so I can go back to Chihuahua, and then that's going to change my map, and it's going to show me all of the areas nearby that have different records, and as you hover over them, you can see them, and then pick out the spot that you're looking for, which is why you want to remember. So here's Matachi, and then there's Tamosachi. I can click on that one and it will bring up the results. I can click on view results and see that. If I want to see everything for the state of Chihuahua, I click on Chihuahua again and then view results. And then this is your places within. So here's Chihuahua. And if you've written down all those nearby locations, they're found over here on the side. And it gives you this list and you can choose. And keep in mind, it's still showing all my filters. So it's only showing me the ones that have the marriages for this time period. And then this is an option where you can try the different records as well. So that is how the image viewer works and how you can use the map viewer to see nearby records. Let's go back to our presentation. And let's talk now about digital books. Family Search is in the process of digitizing many of their books, especially all of those that are out of copyright where they can be freely accessed. This is our homepage for our Family Search digital library, where you can find over 500,000 digitized books available. So let's go take a look at how we do that. I'm going to go back to Family Search, and I'm going to click on search and then books. I could also click on books right here, but if you're on the home page, you go search and then books, which takes you to this area where you can search for books that are available. Keep in mind that we have digital library partners who are also digitizing their books. And I want you to see this wonderful list of all of these libraries that are partnering with us. There are oodles of them here. So it's a good place to look to see if you can find books about your ancestors or books about the locality where they lived, and search for more information there. Now let's go back and let's do some searching. And also, if you need some search tips here, they're right here. And this time I'm going to look for a book that lots of New Mexicans like to look for, Origins of New Mexico Families. And click on, I did it in quotations, so I get the exact name that I want. You could just put in a surname or something like that if you wanted to look for just what had your surname in it. And then I can click here on enter, and it brings me up a list of the results. So we've got Origins of New Mexico Families by Fray Angelico Chavez. And then it tells me it's protected, but it prompts me to log in. So when I click on, before I do that, here's my other results that I can look at. Also, if you want to filter your results here by the name of the author or the language or who provided it to be digitized, you have that. If you want to just see things that are available publicly, you can do that as well. But again, less is more. I want it to show me everything. So let's click on login, and it should automatically notice that I am logged in. So now I've got the option here to view inside. So I'm going to click on that. And that brings up the actual book. Now here's some of your tools up here to rotate, to adjust the contrast and the brightness, to zoom in and to zoom out. If you want to look at thumbnails, you can click on the thumbnails and it gives you the thumbnails, and that gives you a quick way to scan through and find the indexes. If you want to see the citation information, click on the little information button and it'll bring that up. So you've got information about that, enough for you to be able to create a citation. And then if there are no restrictions, you can actually download the book to your own computer and save it there as well. So there's a lot of good information here. If I click on a page, it brings it up and I've got a little bit more information. Let's go to thumbnails and advance it a little bit. There is also the option to view so this has been OCR'd. So if you want to do a search, you should be able to search through it and find out what you're looking for. If the book was in Spanish, you could do the show text button and then copy and paste the text into Google Translate and get a translated version of the book. So that's a cool feature that you can use because the text has been OCR'd. All right, let's go back to the presentation. Coming down the home stretch. I hope you're still with me. Let's talk about genealogies. Family Search also has many user and computer generated genealogies where you can search for your ancestors. And here's just a list of some of the few that are available. We have community trees, oral genealogies, computer generated trees, Guild of One Name studies. We have some partner trees, and we have the old standbys, the pedigree resource file, the ancestral file, and the international genealogical index, the old IGI. And those of you that have been doing this for a while will know what that is. Now let's go back to Family Search, and I'm going to go to the home page. I'll just type it in, and then we're going to find that. It's going to be under search and then genealogies. And one of the cool things about the genealogies, you can search in here by name, but as you scroll down and look at the available options, it tells you how confident we are in the accuracy of the data in the trees. So the community trees is done by groups of people where they've gone in and used records to reconstitute a town or a locality, and they used actual records. So it can be very helpful to find information in specific localities. Oral genealogies also has high data accuracy. Oral genealogies are very common in Africa and Polynesia, Oceania. So there's that. As we look through these, the computer generated trees, the computer interprets the information in the record and then puts them into families and into trees. And then unknown accuracy, the Guild of One Name Studies, the partner trees, and of course the pedigree resource file, the ancestral file, and the IGI are all questionable. But for these that have unknown data accuracy, it's always a good starting place where you can go in and look at what's in there and maybe try it out and see if you can prove it or disprove it. So let's take a look at community trees for a minute. I'm going to click here on the community trees, and then there's several here. It says you can filter by location, but honestly, I've not found this to work very well. So let's go ahead up here under the keyword search and type in New Mexico and click on search. And there's actually a community tree that's been built based on church records and some civil records from New Mexico. So you can click on that, and then it'll give you options to search. It tells you a little bit more about it. So that is one of the trees you might want to try. As I go back to the genealogies page, let's take a look at the computer generated trees. So we're going to view all the trees in this collection. And there's not a lot of them yet. We've got Australia, Brazil, the Philippines, Nuevo Leon, Mexico, and then Abruzzo in Italy. I click here on Nuevo Leon, and then I want to just here I can put in, I'm going to use Arturo, one of my colleagues. This isn't his real record, but there is an Arturo Cuellar in the tree. So I've got Arturo, again, search options. I also have the same options that I have on the historical records. I'm going to go ahead and add the name of a spouse, Elisa Gonzalez, and then I can click on search. So here I've got some information. Here's an Arturo with Elisa Gonzalez, and I can click on his name. And it'll take me to this page that gives me a little bit more about it. And then let's blow that up a little so you can see it. So here is Arturo and Elisa. And then I have some children over here. So if I click on Stella, that will show me over here on the right-hand side that she was born about 1917. She died in Linares, and I have a death date, and it comes from a death registration. So this came from an actual civil registration from Nuevo Leon, and so I can count on this to be fairly accurate. So this is another innovation that Family Search is working on to help more people be able to find their ancestors and connect with them. All right, last but not least, let's talk about the Family Search Wiki. There are a lot of cool things that you can find in the wiki. There are over 100,000 articles on genealogical related topics. There's what we call guided research, which will, for certain countries and areas, it'll guide you to the best possible records that you can search for your ancestor. It's a place to learn about record types, archives and repositories, get some help reading foreign language records, and to find online resources from anywhere in the world. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. And I'm going to go to search and then research wiki. And it's going to, thought it was going to load. Let's give it a minute. So one of the first things that I was going to show you was the guided research. So that's over here. It says jumpstart your research, guided research here on the right-hand side. Click on it, and then it gives you a list of places where you can search. So if I choose Mexico, well, actually, yeah, well, let's do United States. We'll do Mexico in the next example. Let's go to New Mexico. So here it tells me Family Search has identified the most complete online indexes for birth, marriage, and death information. So if I'm looking for a birth, click on here. Here's a collection where I can start. It tells me where it's at, and I can look through. If I don't find anything there, here are some additional online records, some possible substitute records, some tips for improving my searching, a place to get help. So let's take a look at the substitute records. So these are records that could provide birth information, but they aren't necessarily birth records. So a death record, age at death, I can calculate the birth date. Cemetery, census records, church records, newspapers, obituaries, military records, Bible records, all of these could help me to find or calculate a birth date for someone. So it's additional resources. Now, if you're still stuck, let's go back here and look at research help. There are some options here. We are giving virtual online consultations at the Family History Library. You can click here and book an appointment with one of us via Zoom for 20 minutes, and we can give you some suggestions and some ideas that will help you to advance your research, hopefully. Or you can go into the Family Search community and ask some questions there as well. Now let's go up here and let's go to Mexico. So there's also a search field over here that you can use. So let's go to Mexico, genealogy. So the genealogy pages are basically the home pages for each country and each state. So here I've got some things for helping me to get started in Mexico and some research tools. I mentioned if you had trouble reading the language, here's some Spanish genealogical word list that will help you to translate it. There's some information on to help you read the Spanish handwriting. There's also a clickable map down here. So let's say my ancestors were from Chihuahua. I want to see stuff that's Chihuahua specific. I can click on the map and then it'll take me to this page that's all things for the state of Chihuahua in Mexico. Over here on the right-hand side, I've got research strategies. I've got record types. So if you want to learn more about civil registration, you can click on civil registration. It'll teach you more about it. If you need some background information, if you've got the name of a rancho in Chihuahua, but you don't know which municipality it belongs to, which is important if you're trying to find the civil registration records, you can go to the gazetteers and look and see if you can identify the municipality. And then if you want to see the local research resources, family history centers, archives, and libraries, you can click on that as well. So if I go to archives and libraries, here's some information about different archives that has information about records from the state of Chihuahua. So some great information here. Now, are you still with me? I hope so. We're coming down the home stretch. So let's I'm thinking some of you may have gone off to try your luck with one of these features that I've highlighted, and that's okay, because that's why I showed them to you, because I want you to try again. So how many new places will you be searching tonight for records about your ancestors? We've talked about historical records, we've talked about the catalog, we've talked about images, books, genealogies, and the research wiki, all places where you can go in and find more information. So we'll end with that. Mil gracias. And I can take a few questions if you've got them. And it looks like there may be some questions in the chat. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, turn my camera on, and let you ask questions.
This is Kathy Romero. I'm really surprised to see that the Chavez book was digitized, because it's certainly not out of copyright.
The original is, it was published in 1913.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So
that was the first edition. I don't think the second edition is.
Okay, so that's okay, got it. Well, that makes sense, because it's a toehold that they can see right off the bat what the first edition was. Okay.
Yeah. So it looks like Simone has a question. He loves Images View. Is there a way to see what's recently been indexed rather than just made visible? Family Search has in their blog publishes areas that have new indexed records. Let me find it and I'll show it to you how you can find it. I just want to make sure that I can get to it. Let's see, blog. But they do list in, they used to do it once a week. I don't know if they do it. All right, let me go back to sharing. I don't know if they do it once a week or if they've gone to once a month. So I'm gonna share my screen here. So on any page on Family Search, if you will go to the bottom of the page and click on blog, you will be taken to this. And you get some tiles for some of the most recent entries. So here's new free historical records on Family Search for the 17th of October. If I click on that, it brings up this article, and then there's a whole list of the collections. The index records, that's how many index records have been added to the collection, and then how many images have been added to a collection. So you can scroll through this and see what's new. And you'll notice there's a lot of this from Brazil. I suspect that a lot of this has been computer aided indexing. So that helps you with that. Now let me see the other half of your question. Let's see. I think that, yes, about indexing matrimonials. I think they will do them eventually, but I think that they're not ready yet to move on to marriages. They still have some more baptisms to do, but I do know that eventually they'll get to them. So I hope that helps answer your question, Simone. If not, feel free to open up your mic and speak up.
How did you get to the blog again from the home?
So on any, well, let's just go to the homepage of Family Search. On any page on, I'm still sharing my screen. Yeah. On any page on Family Search, if you scroll down to the very bottom, you'll see blog.
Got it.
And just click on it. Oh, my page's still loading, so it keeps bumping me out. So there's blog. And then you can go through and you can read the articles that are there. And then you can look for, I think they do this once a week, the historical records. Also, if you wanted to read what is in the Spanish version of the blog, or if you want to change the website to Spanish, if you click on the little globe up here in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see the language options, and you can go to Espanol, and that will change the blog page as well. And then also, I'm going to go back to English for a minute. If you want to look for other classes that are available on Family Search, if you'll go to the question mark and then go to the Help Center. And then as you scroll down, there's the options here to learn more about these features. But if you click on View All, you can go to the Learning Center, and then you can see other options here. And you can also search for different records in the different classes in the Learning Center. So if I put in my last name, you can pull up classes that I've done, or you can just search by topic as well.
That's
so yeah, Jaime is talking about Google Translate. Yeah, it's not super good. I agree, but it's probably your best bet if you don't speak Spanish. I like it better for a website than I do for records. I think for records, you're better off to have someone help you read them. And you can go to the Family Search community for that. And that's found also under that little question mark. If you click on it and then go to community, you can go in and find places. It's like a forum where you can post a question and get an answer. And there's all different communities and different groups and such. So I recommend that. Or if you Facebook, there's a lot of really helpful Facebook groups online too. So you can search for specific groups. So anyways, I think I've talked your ears off.
Well, it's very good. I mean, because it's so robust in terms of the ways you can look at different subjects. So yeah, I totally appreciate it. And I'd like
that's why I always say if you haven't searched 5, 6, 7 different ways, you haven't tried hard enough.
So this is the last call for questions before we say goodbye. So you can just unmic yourself, but unmute rather. Same thing.
Yeah.
But we are
Running
getting some nice thank yous, and
Terrific. Thank
what
you.
we'll do is what I can do is we have a private YouTube, and the recording will go there, and I'll let everybody who came have the link. And yes, so you'll be able to revisit it.
Yeah, and eventually I plan to get this recorded and put in the Family Search Learning Center. I have an older version that's a couple of years old, and it doesn't have everything in it that we've shown tonight. But yes, watch for it there. Also watch for it at Roots Tech. I think I'm going to present it at Roots Tech.
Great. Okay, I think that's it. All right, everyone. Thanks again, Debbie, and thanks to everyone who came this evening. I really appreciate it, and we'll see you next time.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.